Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ish, 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 hush, ish, ish. Ra, ka, ra, gi, ra, ka. Sa, la, gla, gla, gla. Wa, twa, blood this. The process of writing a one-word poem on the page involves playfulness, along with the willingness to take risks with imagination, much like a toddler who scribbles letters for the first time on paper. Using the crayon to draw what a word might look like, and creating language outside the boundaries of standard writing. In a way, to think like a child who is creating his first word on paper is to engage in a true act of writing. Because to write means to link the brain, the eyes, the hands simultaneously. It's that coordination of the poet's artistic vision and creative action, which can reveal a word's identity through its image. In that moment, the poet writes, mum. In cursive, and watches its shape flow like a wave across the page. Or gig, to notice how the lower loop of a G shapes itself into an earlobe. Through this practice, the poet guides his hand through a graphological meditation, which then becomes an artistic mediation between self and page. This is when he reimagines language, reimagines the relationship of writing and experience to move toward a literary moment, much like that moment when discovering a new word like Nifalabada, that feeling of surprise and curiosity one has toward its spelling and meaning. Let's look at a one-word poem that is meant to be seen rather than read, a poem that's meant to be viewed as image rather than text. In the poem I by Aram Sarayan, he adds an additional Y and E to the word to enact a sense of play and inventiveness. And in a way, by adding extra letters, the word visually becomes what it means. At first glance, this one-word poem appears disorienting. It takes a second for our eyes to adjust to it. Perhaps it's because as viewers, the extra Y and E skew our perceptions a little, so we find ourselves scanning the word back and forth as if in an REM rapid eye movement state. But what makes this poem effective too is its play on a palindrome. A palindrome being a word or sentence that reads the same forward and backward. Some examples are toot, minim, never odd or even, or draw, oh coward. In his one-word poem, Sarayan gets us to understand his interaction with language. His use of a palindrome gets us, as readers, to look closely at language, to literally eye the word. But then he adds those extra letters and suddenly the poem becomes visible as an image. In Ian Daly's essay, quote, "You call that poetry," unquote, Sarayan says, "I get intrigued by the look of individual words. The word guarantee, for example, looks to me like a bit of a South American insect. The one-word poem gets us to think about the word as picture and reminds us as poets that to develop the mind's eye, we must open ourselves up to seeing language and to feel the energy of a letter. The origin of the A, for example, derives from a pictogram dating back to the 11th century in the Middle East. The A is an ox head, and if you rotate it until its stems point upward, you will see the ox's muzzle in the area between the apex and crossbar. Once we are aware that the letter is a picture, it's up to us as writers to imagine the ox plowing the field of the page, getting it ready for us to plant and expand our imagination. So one of the things I've been really interested in is, at least for me as I guess as a writer of, you know, poems, is I like the idea of sound and how it works and how sounds, despite how sporadic and how much it fills our daily lives. And it could be the most simplest sounds, you know. You know, for me, these mean something, you know. And one of the things in terms of as being a Dene, you know, the origin of sound, right? The origin of language is sound, at least you know, when it comes to Dene culture. So I'll share this last poem with you. It's called Nascent. It begins at a diacritical spark of breath and soma. Vowel stress, nasal enunciation, the tenors of existence. Ictus of Ina. Inside where person ticks in utero, like twa, rippling skin. Hitherto by way of sonus, in a moment, in accordance with vocabulary, body forms. That single E, long interval, appends in muscular tube of na. See the inks, flagella zigzag, skir towards page ovum. To perforate. Its egg coat. Fecundate. The nucleus of this sheet opposite of black, like static vibrating epidermis, eardrum, it's a plash on parchment sheet, a single drip seep, ink as semen, saturates fibrous layers, stimulates the origin of the length of a tongue, igniting between no light and cotton rag paper, the acute cadence, blisters, a glottal flicker, like dotting the top of an upper stem, head less human silhouette, throat deep, where the parturition of phrase, of aphorism, breathes and coos. Ob owo, their sound only sound shaping. Visible bod and noggin to hear perspicacity. It is active, fro and to, an infinite oscillation of an alphabetic procreation to circumflex. These pitches of stress, these flares over letters, hover, keep in place the strained origin in speech. These newborn glissandos, these movements tense and revise type size, where ditsa designs permanence. Punctuation marks are proof of one's own cultural sentience. Those authentic reverberations above the cap height where breath pressures tongue against teeth. Below the baseline where throat exhales the long accent vowel. In that moment, it echoes through nose, quivers as phonemic air. The ogonic tickle of chi. Yeah, thank you.